Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Bande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Bande Guru Shri Charana Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Romanchakampa Srutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Dirama Janado Shri Vigrahara Jukta sa bhaktam sa niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunjayuno Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritvaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Vavayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Shradikama Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Ne kunjayuno Rati Kelisidhyai Jayali Virjuktir Apekshaniya Ne kunjayuno Rati Kelisidhyai Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya Bande Gurashi charanara vrindam Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya Bande Gurashi Sakchadharitena samastashashtri Uktastattabha vyataiva sadhuvi Samastashastri Kintu prabhorja priyaiva tasya Bande Gurashi charanara vrindam Priyaiva tasya Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Sado Yasya prasadam Nagati kuta Dayam stuvam tasya Yashatrin sandhyam Bande Gurashi charanara vrindam Dayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi charanara vrindam Dayam sandhyam Vande Gurashi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatarisha Tarine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vatsatarishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Nityananda Shri Advaita Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hariaraye Nama Krishna Jadavaye Nama Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Nama Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Nittai Gaura Haribo 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo 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 Nittai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo Jai Vishwapad Paramahansa Prabhupada Acharya Suttara Sishimad His Divine Grace ISKCON Pratishtha Vibhuti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siromani Gaura Priyajana Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Guru Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Jayananta Kuti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Kajanaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhana Harinam Sankirtan Jagya Ki Jai Jog Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Nidanga 29th book distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajapam Vrindavan Matrudam Ki Jai Deloship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Namadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Shrimas Bhadradev Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Vrinde Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinde Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanandi All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glory to the Assembly Bodies All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Guru Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada la da da ayine. Pralada la da da ayine. Hiranyakashipu Vaksha. Silatang kanakalaye. Ito nisinga parato nisinga. Jato jato jamita to nisinga. Bahir nisinga, hrudaye nisinga. Bahir nisinga, hrudaye nisinga. Narasimha Narana Prabhade. Narasimha Mahadev Sharana Prabhade. Tava kara kamala bare nakam adavata sringa. Dalita Hiranyakashipu tanabringa. Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Baba Kara Kamala Re. Nakam Dalita Hiranyakashipu tanabringa. Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Jai Jagadisha Kesavadruta Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Jaya Nishingade, Jaya Nishingade, Nishingade, Jaya Nishingade. Jaya Nara Hari, Jaya Nara Hari, Nara Hari, Jaya Nara Hari. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakta Prahlad, Srila Prahlad. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्नाश कनु सिंहदेव भगवान की जय। जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताई गौरी प्रेम नंदे हरि हरि ओ। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्राणे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्राणे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्राणे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एई अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एई अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण पावो एई अभिलाषी जे तुम्हारा शरण लोय तारा वंचा पूर्ण हो जय तुम कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी पा मोरा अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो भास नायने हेरिबो सदा जुगल रूप राशि नाया निवेदन धर सखीरनुगत करो धन धर सखीरनुगत सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दास कोए ए नमोरा होए राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदाए नवासी राधा श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदाए नवासी तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राण शांति दक्षिणा पादे पादे यानिका यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणक्षन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पादे पादे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि दे पादे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari. Jai Vrinda Devi Tulsi Maharani ki jai.
Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to return the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, the soul of myself will give you, make it resident for Vrindavan. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision of all the holy, beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me honored servant. This very fallen Lord is servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love, Shri Radha Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Pavamadamatma Shayakar Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Ananda Mudivadhanam Padiparam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Parampara Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Tadrishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Iti Shamiyajani Nanuragaha Trinadapi Sinichena Tarorapi Sashana Amanina Manadina Kirtaniya Sadahari Adhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai Ainandatanu Jakinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pankaj Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Enam Galorashrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakairin Chitam Bapukada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakusha Prarusaitam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Aslisha Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshana Mahato Karotuva Yata Tata Vavidatu Lampato Matprananatas Saeva Nahapara Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Mahavarandaya Krishna Prema Krishna Krishna
Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vichani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Satani.
Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire for women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I don't know when Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Satarani. So there are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagate the holy names of the Lord.
2.
Consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be
independent of them, Lord
Vishnu. To discern
4.
To blaspheme the Vedic
lordships, O lordships of the Vedic version. 5.
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination.
6.
To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees to the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vanikacharya Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Satari Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatandvitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Shri Nalaite Durvani Shri Mutaye Diratani Rupnivadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shri Varsavanuvi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Primadya Shri Rupanuka Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuka Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Parayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Nanchkapatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guratrase Namaha Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sulator Pangur Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyadvindaranya Kalpadramadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatakstriyestana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samiti Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesa Surabir Apipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kananta Arvinda Dalaya Taksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Pantika kalyanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya Govinda Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govinda Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chayatam Jagaranda Koti Chakti Rasta Jagaranda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Daiva Samprup Nirupas Rubusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pritita Santi Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satpati Bhavita Bhista Birya Eva Nicharupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhutto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesakintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhuto Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Nam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagaranda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Mayasu Ma Praninam Patifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sate Satesu Te Te Prabhavani Chaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristista Te Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chaye Vayasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Abhyasya Chichesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Devikara Visesa Yoga Sanjaya Te Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikar Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparcha Deva Hita Santanam Abhyupetya Deepaya Te Vivita Hita Samanu Dharma Yastadri Geva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kubaha Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagananda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesana Jesutesha Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitad Vatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisasya Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yancha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patakava Teyasta Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kinchuchu Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Guru Vasavya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrasim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Juma Bhumish Chintamani Ganama Yito Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sepriyasa Kechiranandam Jyotiparam Apitada Swadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihisavadi Sirabi Byasta Sumaham Nimesa Dakyova Rajatina Yatrapi Samaye Pajesvita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golokam Itiyam Vidantaste Santaksiti Virachara Katipaye Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Shri Guru Vasta Kapiras ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master, is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other simple worship of the Lord. For my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. However, my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he is the most competential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2. We're going to do again text number 21, because I have not finished speaking about that. Swayam tva asam yatisasya tvayadisa Swarajya Laksmapta Samasta Kama Balim Haradbis Chiraloka Palai Karita Kot Edita Pada Pitaha. Swayam, himself. 2, but asamya, unique. Atisaya, greater. 3 adisa, Lord of the 3. Swarajya, independent supremacy. Lakshmi, fortune. Apta, achieved. Samasta kama, all desires. Balim, worshipping paraphernalia. Haradibi, offering by. Chiraloka Palai, by the eternal maintainers of the order of creation. Kirita Koti, millions of helmets. Edita Pada Pita, feet honored by prayers. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna is the Lord of 3s, and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to his feet. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna is so mild and merciful, as described in the above verses, and yet He is the Lord of all kinds of 3s. He is the Supreme Lord of the 3 worlds, the 3 qualities of material nature, and the 3 Purushas, Karanodakshai, Garbhodakshai, and Shirodakshai Vishnu. There are innumerable universes, and in each and every universe there are different manifestations of Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. Besides that, there is the Sheshamurti, who bears all the universes on his hoods, And Lord Krishna is the Lord of all of them. As the incarnation of Manu, he is the original source of all Manus in innumerable universes. Each universe has manifestations of 504,000 Manus. He is the Lord of the three principal potencies, namely Chit Shakti, Maya Shakti, and Tatastha Shakti. And he is the complete master of 6 kinds of fortune: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. There is none who can excel him in any matter of enjoyment. And certainly there is no one greater than him. No one is equal to or greater than him. It is the duty of everyone, whoever and wherever one may be, to surrender completely unto him. It is not wonderful, therefore, that all the transcendental controllers surrender to him and make all offerings of worship. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to his feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So there are significant explanations here about Krishna's unique qualities. And it is, as we've said before, absolutely essential that we learn what these unique qualities are so that we can develop faith and love for Krishna. When you know someone who has extraordinary qualities, you're attracted to them. Krishna has the most extraordinary qualities, but unless we know what they are, we will not be attracted to him. So in the 8th chapter, 9th verse, Kavim Puranam Anusasitaram Anor Aniyamsa Anusmaritya Sarvasya Dataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. And it says, or Krishna says, one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest. So, knows everything past, present, and future. He has complete knowledge of everything. And who is the oldest? So there was no one existing in the material world before Krishna. And Krishna is the supreme, eternal, absolute truth, personality of Godhead. And everything emanates from him. And that includes us as jivas. So we are also coexistent with Krishna, because we are also eternal, being part and parcel of Krishna. However, Krishna has all knowledge, and we have partial knowledge, or we cannot emulate Krishna's knowledge, bank of knowledge. And third, Krishna has unlimited bliss. We can partake in that unlimited bliss, but we can never actually measure it because it's always increasing. So we have many of the same qualities and attributes as Krishna, but not completely like him. And then it says, who is the controller? Who is smaller than the smallest? Who is the maintainer of everything? Who is beyond all material conception? Who is inconceivable? And who is always a person? He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. Okay, so this verse defeats the whole premise of Mayavad philosophy, because it clearly says that Krishna is a person who knows everything, and no one can be equal or greater than the Lord. Everyone is subordinate to the Lord. So when it says that he's a person and who has a inconceivable form, in other words, his original form from which everything else emanates is the Sham Sundar form, the three-bending form. And from that form, everything else comes. Balaram, the first Chaturvyuha, Narayana, the second Chaturvyuha, and then the Vishnu incarnations, and then the demigods, and then all the living entities in the material world, 8,400,000 species, and all the planets, and everything is originally coming from Krishna in this different tiered expansions of his. So Prabhupada says in the purport to 8th chapter, verse number 9, the process of thinking of the Supreme is mentioned in this verse. The foremost point is that he is not impersonal or void. So this is a direct contradiction that is presented by the Mayavadis. They claim that God has no form, and that you and I have no form either, and that we are not persons. Our concept of being a person, according to the Mayavadis, is an illusion. There's only one soul, and that is the entire Brahmajyoti. And they deny that the Brahmajyoti emanates from Krishna. On the other hand, they say everything comes from the Brahmajyoti, including Krishna. So everything's all jungled, mixed up, and basically to distract attention from Krishna and put it all on his glaring, beautiful Brahmajyoti light. So with imperfect or partial knowledge, and also false points, like Krishna has no, is not a person, and things like that. Some points are true, that is, the Brahmajyoti is spiritual light. It is true that the Brahmajyoti is the basis of the spiritual world and the material world. Not the origin, but the basis in the support of it. And everything in the material world is coming from the Brahmajyoti, because the Brahmajyoti effulgence of Krishna is made up of infinite number of jivas. And when the Brahmajyoti enters the material world, it is reflected off of the sun god, or the sun globe, and then it illuminates the entire universe and supplies heat and light, and also the jivas. So we see some things that the Mayavadis say are true, and some things are blatantly not true. And the whole range of their knowledge is partial. It's not complete knowledge. Therefore, anyone who does attain the Brahman realization by following Mayavad philosophy will fall down, because they don't believe that there are Vaikuntha planets. They don't believe that there's Goloka planet. They don't believe that Krishna is present in Goloka, and Narayana is present in Vaikuntha, and there are infinite Narayana expansions on the infinite planets in Vaikuntha, and on above that there's Goloka. So they don't believe any of this. They have canceled it all. They don't believe that the material world is a reality. They think it's an illusion, as well as personalities or personal identification. So here it says, the process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy. And so one cannot meditate on something impersonal or void. That is very difficult. The process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy and is factually stated herein. First of all, the Lord is Purusha, a person. We think of the person Rama and the person Krishna, and whether one thinks of Rama or Krishna, what he is like is described in this verse of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is Kavi, That is, he knows past, present, and future, and therefore knows everything. He is the oldest personality because he is the origin of everything. Everything is born out of one second, my pages are stick together. Out of him. He is also the supreme controller of the universe, and he is the maintainer and instructor of humanity. He is smaller than the smallest. The living entity is 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, but the Lord is so inconceivably small that he enters into the heart of this particle. Therefore, he is called smaller than the smallest. As the supreme, he can enter into the atom and into the heart of the smallest and control him as the supersoul. Although so small, he is still all-pervading and is maintaining everything. In other words, he contains everything also in the material world. The whole universe is contained in his expansion as the Virat Rupa. So he's smaller than the smallest, smaller than our soul, which is already smaller than even an atom, because it is 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. At the same time, he is greater than the greatest, because he manifests his form as Virat Rupa, which encompasses everything in the material universe. And now there are also billions of more material universes, as there are an unlimited number of planets in the Vaikuntha Loka. So all this is unimaginable for a human being. We have such a limited time-space module that we live in. When we hear of these vastly expansive qualities of the Lord, it's hard to believe it. It's like the frog in the well. When another frog comes and says, hey, there's this ocean called the Pacific Ocean. It's much bigger than your well. The frog in the well doesn't believe it. It tries to measure it by puffing up his body, and eventually his body explodes and he dies. So that's what happens to people. They refuse to accept there's some great supreme personality of Godhead who has all powers, all knowledge, all fame, all beauty, all things, right? All renunciation and all riches. They just can't believe it, because they can't even come close to what's being described about Krishna. Therefore, out of envy, they refuse to accept it, and they just say, "Oh, that's all mythology. That's not real. All what's real is science." Well, what do you mean? What's real is science? For example, Prabhupada says in the book Dharma. It's a very interesting book also. And he says, so Brahman is like the sunshine, Paramatma like the localized sun globe, and Bhagavan like the sun god. They are all one in the sense that they are all the pure light of the absolute truth. But still, there is a difference. If you stand in the sunshine, that does not mean you have reached the sun globe or seen the predominating deity of the sun, Vivaswan. Similarly, the different means for understanding absolute truth produce different realizations. One who tries to understand the absolute simply by mental speculation may ultimately realize the impersonal Brahman. And one who tries to understand the absolute truth through meditative yoga practice may be able to realize the Paramatma. But one who practices bhakti yoga can achieve complete understanding of the absolute truth and realize the spiritual form of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, who's the original source of everything. Okay? Then it says, Prabhupada says, there are many philosophers who are trying to find the original source of everything. The scientists are also trying to find that original source. They have concluded that everything originates from matter. This is the modern theory of chemical evolution. But although the theory of the so-called scientists is that everything, including life, comes from matter, they have not been able to produce life from chemicals. So what good is their theory? When you have a theory, you have to do experimentation to prove that the theory is correct. But there's no experiment the scientists have ever done to produce a living being. Prabhupada said, let them create just one egg. They know everything in the egg. Let them create it. They know all the ingredients in an egg. You have calcium, you have this, you have that. So let them make one egg. They can't even do that, you see. So their whole science is junk. It's nonsense. It's not science. The real definition of science, as I said before, not the phony definition in the dictionary. Real science is something that is true in all frames of reference and at all time. That is science. Like, for example, if you say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Absolute Truth, that is true in all frames of reference and at all time. Right? But if you say, Einstein is God, it's not true at all time, and it's not true in every frame of reference. Anyway, Einstein has died, so he's not really significant because he died in ignorance of Krishna. So then it says, although the theory of the so-called scientists is that everything, including life, comes from matter, they have not been able to produce life from chemicals. The Vedanta Sutra instructs that we should search out the original source of everything, the absolute truth. But the conclusion of all Vedic knowledge is that that source is a living being, not matter. As the Katha Upanishad states, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahudam Yo Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kamam. Among all the conscious living beings, there is one supreme living being who is supplying all the others with their necessities. In the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 8th verse, Krishna reveals that he is that supreme living being. Aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam pravartate. I am the source of everything. That aham, I, is Krishna, the supreme living being, not dead matter. Similarly, earlier in the Bhagavad Gita 7.7, Krishna says, Matak parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So this is why Bhagavad Gita is so important. It is Krishna speaking about himself. Who else is a greater authority on Krishna than himself? So, if we don't accept Bhagavad Gita, if we don't accept Krishna, that is actually sinful. And because of that sin, we will not be able to get freed from the cycle of birth and death. So just understand this. If a person does not accept Krishna as the supreme absolute truth and surrenders to him, they are cursing themselves to stay in the material world and suffer over and over again birth, death, old age, and disease, and all the three miseries, adhyatmika, adhibhotika, adhidaivika miseries, and be always a prisoner of the three modes of material nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and always be controlled by time, by the concept of past, present, and future, and always be harassed or controlled also by lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and envy. These are things that one cannot escape when they reject Krishna. They immediately come under control of these things. So, is there any hope for people? Yes. And we're going to explain that now. And now Prabhupada continues. He says, so we should understand that Krishna, Bhagavan, is the last word in the absolute truth. In the Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Krishna states that the impersonal Brahman rests upon him. Brahmano hi pratistaham amritam asya devacha. So then he says, Krishna states that the impersonal Brahman rests upon him. Brahmano hi pratistaham. Just as the sunshine comes from the sun, the light of Brahman that spreads throughout the universe comes from Krishna. That is explained in the Brahma Samhita 540. Yasya prabha prabhavado jagananda kotim kotis vasesu vasudadi vibhuti binam tad brahma niskalam anantam asesa bhutam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Brahman effulgence is Krishna's bodily glow, known as the Brahma Jyoti, and this material world is generated out of that effulgence. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Krishna says, Mayatatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina. He says, my impersonal feature, the Brahman effulgence, is expanded everywhere. Matstani sarvabhutani. Everything is resting on that Brahman effulgence. Na chaham te sovastita. But I personally am not there. So Krishna is completely independent. He doesn't depend on his own energy. He is the source of the energy. Na chaham te sovastita. But I personally am not there. This is tattva jnana, the knowledge of the absolute truth. So Krishna is not part of the material world. When he appears in the material world, he appears also with his spiritual potency, or yogamaya. So he's not actually in the material world. It's just like like for example, if you're 1,000 feet below the surface of the ocean in a submarine, the submarine is in the ocean, but you're in the submarine. You're not in the ocean, right? You can theoretically say you're in the ocean because the submarine is there, but actually you're in the submarine safe and sound from what? Number one, there's no air that you'll be able to breathe easily in the ocean. There is some air in the ocean, but you won't be able to breathe it. Number two, if you were 1,000 feet under the ocean, you would die from suffocation and from the weight of that water, right? It'd be very difficult to swim to the surface without dying. So, although you're in the submarine in the ocean, you could theoretically say you're in the submarine, but actually, or you could theoretically say I'm in the ocean, but actually you're in the submarine and you're safe from all the difficulties of being 1,000 feet in the ocean. So in the same way, when Krishna comes, he is not under the modes of material nature. He's not subject to time. He's not subject to the different miseries, birth, death, old age, and disease. He is in the material creation with his spiritual energy called Yogamaya that protects him. And therefore he's not subject to the same things that we are subject to. And why are we subject to those things? Well, it's not we are subject, it's our body is subject to them. We are not subject to them because we have an eternal soul, but we are so much an illusion, we don't accept it. Or even if we theoretically say, oh, I have an eternal soul, but unless you live like an eternal soul, you're not, it's just a false statement. Living like an eternal soul would be engaging eternally in the service of Krishna. So therefore, if a person does not accept Krishna, they are cursing themselves to remain in the material world in ignorance. And it's sinful because you are punishing your soul. Now, what does that mean, punishing the soul? You can't kill the soul because the soul is eternal. You can't hurt the soul because the soul is not matter. It's spirit. But yet, you continually cover the soul with a shroud of illusion called the material body. And so that is a type of abuse of your own soul due to, and that's why it says in the Ishopanishad, Atmaha, one becomes the killer of the soul by ignoring Krishna and believing nonsense theories, such as everything is created by chemical evolution, right? But yet they've never been able to prove it. And one time, this big scholar came to the University of California in Anaheim, and our devotee Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj was a student getting his PhD there, and some very big chemical evolutionist scientists came to speak. And when Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj told that to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, "You ask him this question. If I give you all the chemicals, can you produce a living being?" So when the question period came, after the big guy gave his lecture, Bhakti Swarup Damodar raised his hand and he called on him, "Yes, sir." He said, "I have a question. If I give you all the chemicals, can you produce a living being?" And the scientist said, "No." Well, his whole let's say, expertise is chemical evolution. They're teaching it in school that everything is produced by chemical evolution. There's no such thing as God producing the universe. But yet they can't prove it. So how can you say it's science? Science means you observe things. You see a pattern. Based on that pattern, you make a theory. And then you experiment to prove that the theory is right. That's science. But here they're teaching something that they can't prove. Right? So therefore, it's nonsense. It's not science. They have concluded that everything originates from matter. This is the modern theory of chemical evolution. But although the theory of the so-called scientists is that everything, including life, comes from matter, they have not been able to produce life from chemicals. There it is. Look up chemical evolution. Let's see what it says. Or what they say. So unless we understand the unique qualities of Krishna, we will be like the scientists. Phony science will be living in a junk world full of misconceptions. What does it say? Speak in a microphone. Always take the microphone on the ground so people, you don't have to do this every time.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It says,
Speak louder.
Chemical evolution. The formation of complex organic molecules from simpler inorganic molecules through chemical reactions in the oceans during the early history of the earth. The first step.
Early history of what?
Earth.
Okay. You said earth. I couldn't understand what you said. Go ahead.
History of the earth. The first step in the development of life on this planet.
So let them prove it. How do they know it's the first step of life in this planet? This is nonsense. Go ahead.
The period of chemical evolution lasted less than 1 billion years.
How do they know that? Go ahead.
I think this much is not showing more. Let me find one other article.
Is that finished?
Yeah, it's not showing the more text on this article.
What?
The more the text is not showing more on this website.
Because there's nothing more to say. It's all nonsense, right? They're teaching this in school like it's science. Did you hear anything about this, Prabhu? Not yet. Oh, jeez, you missing the best. Right. Have any of you learned about chemical evolution? Have you learned about it?
Probably forgot.
Huh?
Probably forgot.
Okay. Good thing you forgot. Anybody else? Did you learn about chemical evolution? No? So now you know. They're teaching it as the origin of life. That's what it said there, right? The origin of life.
Yeah, it's the origin of life.
Right? You have it in there too?
Yeah, read something here.
Go ahead.
I'm reading who proposed chemical evolution theory. In the first stage of chemical evolution, molecules in the primitive environment formed simple organic substances such as amino acids. This concept was first proposed in 1936 in a book entitled The Origin of Life on Earth, written by Russian scientist Alexander Ivanovich Oparin.
He was an Upadi?
Russian scientist. He's the first one who proposed this theory.
I know. Okay, but but they presented as it. But the other one, they're presenting it as confirmed that it is how life began. Read what you have, Prabhu. Read that again.
Or another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, that is gone. I can search again. So the another one is how life began.
Go ahead.
According to prevalent theory.
What theory?
Prevalent.
Prevalent.
According to prevalent theory, chemical evolution occurred in 4 stages. In the first stage of chemical evolution, molecules in the primitive environment formed simple organic substances such as amino acids.
That's what he just read. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's the same. The concept was first proposed in 1936 in a book entitled I think it's the same article.
It's the same thing. So that they call that the primeval soup, primordial soup. It was somewhere in the ocean, maybe in the North Pole or the South Pole, and it was zapped by lightning, and it created amino acids. Now, why did they say that? Because a scientist zapped a soup with all these chemicals in it, and it produced an organic chemical called ammonia, right? And based on that, they said, well, this proves that this happened, by accident, and from that, those amino acids, which are considered organic chemicals, eventually a living one-celled being, amoeba, came into existence. And from the amoeba, it developed in 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells, and it created a human being. This is a complete junk theory, right? No one has ever proven that. No one has done any experiment to show, except for that one experiment where some scientists zapped a primordial soup. Well, that means that there was a whole bunch of chemicals, and he was able to produce ammonia, which is an organic chemical. So it's not that you can create a living being from ammonia. If you breathe in ammonia, you could die, right? But this is the state of science today. It's not science, it's junk, right? And now you have the proof. Science is you have a theory, you do experimentation, and you prove the theory with the experiments, right? They've never been able to do it. And Prabhupada is explaining that. Okay. So then, it goes further. It says, if we try to understand the absolute truth by dint of our speculative strength, which is what the scientists are doing, then we can at most approach only up to the impersonal feature. So, this is an interesting statement because when a scientist becomes spiritual, he becomes a Mayavadi. He doesn't become a devotee. He becomes a Mayavadi. Why? Because Mayavadi is atheism. It doesn't believe God is a person. So the scientists can accept that as spiritual, but not bhakti yoga. So there are scientists that claim to be spiritual, but their spiritual realization is Mayavad philosophy, which is atheistic. he can at most approach up to the impersonal feature, just as if we try to understand the sun by our personal strength, we can at most see the sunshine. We don't see the planet sun. I mean, you can see the sun, but you can't reach it, and you can't see the personality of Vivaswan in the sun. But if we want to study the sun globe or understand the predominating deity of the sun, that is a different thing. For that, simply coming into the sunshine will not help you. You'll need some process by which you can go to the sun globe and meet the sun god. Similarly, you can understand the impersonal Brahman by dint of your speculative knowledge, but you cannot understand the Paramatma, the expansion of the Lord situated in everyone's heart, or Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the origin of Brahman and Paramatma. The fact is that knowledge of Krishna, Bhagavan, includes everything. Therefore, the Vedas say, Kasmin tu Bhagavo Vigyate Sarvam Idam Vigyatam Bhavanti. If you simply understand Krishna, you will automatically understand the Brahman feature and the Paramatma feature. You don't need to try to understand Brahman and Paramatma separately. Simply by understanding Krishna, you will understand both. Not only you understand both, you understand everything, right? You understand how the creation took place. You understand how the creation is being maintained. You understand how creation will be wound up. You understand that you're not this body, that you have an eternal soul, and the eternal soul can never be killed. So after you die, you don't stop existing. But right now, what they're teaching, either explicitly or subtly, is there's no God. When you die, you cease to exist, and therefore any intelligent person will use every minute of the life they have for sense gratification. And to get sense gratification, either you do it hook or crook. You do it by working really hard and making money, or you just walk across the Mexican border and get everything free from the government. There's two ways of getting sense gratification. So this is nonsense. It is teaching people just to be sense gratifiers by insisting that there's no God and insisting that after death there's nothing. You see. Okay, so then Prabhupada continues. Here is another example. Suppose you see a mountain from a great distance. You will simply see some cloudy, vague shape. But if you approach the mountain, you'll see the same mountain much more distinctly, with its greenish color and massive form. And if you actually climb the mountain, you will find so many animals, men, houses, trees, and so on. The object is the same, but it appears different from different angles of vision. So understanding Krishna means understanding Brahman, Paramatma as well. But we must understand Krishna in truth, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yuveti tatvata tyakvadeham punarajanma naiti mameti sarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So that's it. What they're saying, when you die, everything is over, that's complete nonsense. Here Krishna is saying that you exist even when your body is dead. It says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance, meaning Krishna's appearance and activities, does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So here the word tattva, in truth, is used. Because we do not make the effort to understand Krishna in truth, we consider him as ordinary human being. This is the way of the fools and rascals. Avajanti mam mudha, Bhagavad Gita 9:11. But Krishna is not of this material world. Whoever actually understands Krishna as absolute truth has completed his mission in life, and at the end of this life, he doesn't take birth again in this world, but returns home back to Godhead. Wow, this is important information. So now, if we go to the previous verse, and that is number 20, Canto 3, Chapter 2, number 20, there's amazing points made in that purport by Prabhupada. He's talking about Sisupala, who hated Krishna. And then he's talking about the warriors that were on with Sisupala. So, actually with Duryodhana on the battlefield against Krishna. So, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it says, all the warriors who fought against Arjuna, but who were able to see the lotus-like face of the Lord on the battlefront, achieved the abode of the Lord exactly as the devotees of the Lord do. The words pleasing to the eyes of the seer, Nayana Biramam. It's a beautiful, I know a devotee's name is Nayana Biram. It's a beautiful word in Sanskrit. Nayana Biram, or Nayana Biramam, means very pleasing to the eyes. That is Krishna. The words pleasing to the eyes of the seer are very significant. When the warriors from the other side of the battlefield saw Lord Krishna at the front, they appreciated his beauty, and their dormant instinct of love of God was awakened. Sisupala, he was not in the battle of Kurukshetra. He was in the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhisthira. When he saw Krishna, he got upset. He said, this guy is a rascal. He doesn't deserve to be the first person to be worshipped in this yajna. He is a nonsense. And he insulted Krishna in front of everybody. Right? Sisupala saw the Lord also, but he saw him as his enemy, and his love was not awakened. So the warriors on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when they saw Krishna driving the chariot of Arjuna, they were impressed by the beauty of the Lord. Right? So let's hear what else it's saying here. Therefore, Sisupala achieved oneness with the Lord by merging in the impersonal glare of the body called the Brahmajyoti. Here's a guy, he's actually a demon. He hates Krishna. He insulted Krishna. But because his object of hatred was Krishna, he achieved the same thing that the Mayavadis achieve, liberation in the Brahmajyoti. So that proves that the Mayavadis and Sisupala are on the same level. They're both demons. But because they have some connection to Krishna, even though it's negative, Krishna is so merciful that he gives them liberation. But they will fall down because they refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now it says, others who were in the marginal position, being neither friends nor enemies, but slightly in love of Godhead, by appreciating the beauty of his face, were at once promoted to the spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas. The warriors who are fighting against Arjuna, right? Now, what happened? Why? Well, now let's hear this. This is another amazing point. It says, the Lord's personal abode is called Goloka Vrindavana, and the abodes where his plenary expansions reside are called the Vaikunthas, where the Lord is present as Narayana. Love of Godhead is dormant in every living entity, and the entire process of devotional service unto the Lord is meant for awakening this dormant, eternal love of Godhead. Okay. Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti Sadhya Kabunai Shavanadi Sudha Chitta Karaya Udai. That's the verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that says that love of God is in the heart of every living entity, because we were originally with God and we originally loved God, but we misused our independence, limited independence, rejected Krishna and walked away from him. So love of God is inherent in everyone, and Krishna himself is present in the heart of everyone. Right? The love of God is awakened by the association of pure devotees of the Lord. So do you think Your kid will develop love of God by going to school and associating with demon teachers? No, never. No, you can only become a devotee by associating with genuine devotees who are actually following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Not sometimes following, sometimes not following. No, you have to follow strictly. Then devotees will influence others to also become devotees. So he says, those the love of God is awakened by association of pure devotees of the Lord. Here the word partastra puta is significant. Those who saw the beautiful face of the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified first by Arjuna when he made his onslaught with arrows. The Lord appeared for the mission of diminishing the burden of the world, and Arjuna was assisting the Lord by fighting on his behalf. So in other words, he's saying, when Arjuna was shooting his arrows to kill these warriors on the other side, on Duryodhana's side, when those soldiers got hit by those arrows, they became purified because they were arrows shot by Arjuna, who is a pure devotee of the Lord. So his shooting arrows is the same as us going on Sankirtan and preaching to people and convincing them that you're an eternal servant of Krishna. That's who you really are. It's the same thing. Whether Arjuna's shooting them with arrows or we're shooting them with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and books of Prabhupada and Prasadam. Same thing. Right? So, the Lord appeared for the mission of diminishing the burden of the world. What does that mean? Well, when there's too many demons in the world and they start giving trouble to devotees, like they're doing in Ukraine, so what happens? Krishna organizes the war, where all the demons come together and they start killing each other. That's what a war is. These big wars are organized by Krishna, so that the demons kill each other and give devotees a breather for another 10 or 20 years. Just like there's World War I, started in 1914 and then in 1918. Then there's World War II, started in 1940 or 1939 and stopped in 1944. So between 1918 and 1940, how many years is that? It's 22 years. In 22 years, there was another major war, right? Because the number of demons increased so quickly. And now you see, every couple of years, there's a war because the demons are increasing. Any time when there's a thunderstorm and lightning and a blizzard, a demon is born. Demons are born, and to know that, you have these very bad weather conditions. There's a lot of bad weather conditions nowadays, is it not? So that means a lot of demons are being born in this world. And so to diminish that burden on the earth, because it's a burden for Bhumi Devi, these demons are very heavy, they're sinful. So to alleviate this burden for Bhumi Devi, Krishna organizes a war. Okay, so then it says, here the word pratastra puta is significant. Those who saw the beautiful face of the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified first by Arjuna when he made his onslaught, it means when he made his attack, with arrows. The Lord appeared for the mission of diminishing the burden of the world, and Arjuna was assisting the Lord by fighting on his behalf. Arjuna personally declined to fight, and the whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita was given to Arjuna to engage him in the fight. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna agreed to fight in preference to his own decision of not to fight. And thus Arjuna fought to assist the Lord in his mission of diminishing the burden of the earth. Too many demons. You have to kill the demons. All the activities of a pure devotee are executed on the behalf of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has nothing to do with his personal interest, his own personal interest. Arjuna's killing was as good as killing by the Lord himself. As soon as Arjuna shot an arrow at an enemy, that enemy became purified of all material contaminations and became eligible to be transferred to the spiritual sky. Those warriors who appreciated the lotus feet of the Lord and saw his face at the front had their dormant love of God awakened, and thus they were transferred at once to Vaikuntha Lokas, not to the impersonal state of Brahman, as was Sisupala. Sisupala died without appreciating the Lord, while others died with appreciation of the Lord. Both were transferred to the spiritual world, but those who awakened to love of God were transferred to the planets of the transcendental sky, meaning Vaikuntha. But Sisupala was transferred to the Brahma Jyoti, from which he would definitely fall down in the future. Uddhava seemingly lamented that his own position was less than that of the warriors on the battlefield of Kurukshetra because they had attained to Vaikuntha, whereas he remained to lament the disappearance of the Lord. This is an amazing purport. Amazing purport. You can learn a lot if you look at this purport carefully. And okay, so I'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, the demon. It's the first time I heard.
Haribol.
If we have to refer to any verse, which one can we refer it to?
Okay, I'll tell you. I can't tell you right now, but I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyway, I'll let you know. Good question. Anything else?
From the 3-2-20, I got the impression that Sisupala was the main demon. Were there many other demons in the war?
Oh yeah.
Is there like a percentage or a way to calculate? Because I see Prabhupada seems to only focus on
there's
one.
Duryodhan. There's Duryodhan's uncle, Sakuni. There is Karna. Although Karna was a good guy, but he's considered bad guy because he's trying to strip Draupadi. Right. Sakuni was cheating in gambling. He was an expert at cheating in gambling, and because of that, the Pandavas lost their wife, and then they tried to defile her. So there was all demoniac things. Because of that, they had to die. They had to be killed. And also, Bhisma, Pitamaha, Dronacharya, because they didn't protest, because they were being employed by Duryodhana, so they didn't protest. They also had to be killed. Because they, for one reason or other, they sided with the demons, meaning Duryodhana, Sakuni, Karna, and so forth. So you can have good qualities. Like, for example, Hitler had some good qualities, but he was a demon. Right? So in the same way, Duryodhana had some good qualities too. He was an excellent manager, but he was a demon because he wouldn't listen to Krishna. Yeah, there were demons on the other side. People from the whole world, from the whole planet Earth, came to fight. Right? And so there were demoniac people on the side of Duryodhana. So just like people from the whole world are coming to fight in Ukraine against the Russians, and then the Russians are getting people to fight, like not the Kazakhs, but what's the name? I forget. Anyway, so he's getting people from the previous Russian satellite nations to fight on his side. So they're getting demons. They're bringing in demons from and to kill each other on both sides. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, and I'll tell you tomorrow. I might find it now. We'll see. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Who's going to sing? Go ahead. Somebody sing.
Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandha Mohi Savadhana Mate
Bandhu Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai Evavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoy Saha Hoyte
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya
Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha
Ne Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Vati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Chakshudan Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Divya Gyan Hirde Prakashito
Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jaite
Ija Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jati
Vede Gai Jahara Charito
Yajnan Yadarakarito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu
Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu
Lokenath Lokera Jivana
Lokenath Lokera Jivana
Ha ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pad Chaya
Prabhu Puna Doya Deha Mori Padachaya
Ebejas Gushuk Tribhuwana
Ebejas Kushukti Bhuvana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namah Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami
Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nityai Gaura Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By the grace of one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with a transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shelter of lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada ki jai.